Chapter 23, All I Sam. I walked over to Jade as everyone in the building stared at me like I was a novelty item. It felt weird. All eyes were glued on me. Even with Jacob's performance, I still had some moxie to my notoriety. A girl who was beyond beautiful stared at me with a look that made me feel uncomfortable. I managed a smile and a nod in her direction. She stood staring at me like she was about to faint. "Tim," Eve responded, catching my attention. She was standing next to Jade, impatiently signaling me over with an agitated look. I shrugged as she rolled her eyes. "Not that," she explained, shaking her head. "Hurry up before Sam comes down." I sped up my stroll as she and Jade stared around, paranoid of their surroundings. "Okay," I responded. "What's going on?" She pointed toward Jade without saying anything. I followed her motion as Jade continued. "Have you met with Pete and Uriah?" he responded, looking me in the eye. I nodded yes as I responded. "Yeah, Pete went over everything with me this morning." "Why?" I said, turning to Eve in an asking manner. Jade motioned for me to follow him as he entered a soundproof booth. Their demeanor was off-putting, and it had me on edge. Pete and Uriah explained how ridiculous the mission was, and just thinking about it made me queasy. When I considered Sam wasn't even able to practice, I was so nervous about the situation I didn't even want to think about the task ahead of us. "What's going on?" I asked, becoming impatient. Eve placed a finger over my mouth as I entered. She closed the door to the booth and locked it behind us. "You're not going to kill me, are you?" I joked with an awkward smile. "Only if you don't hurry up," Eve replied, shoving me in. I followed her as she sat down next to Jade. I plopped down next to her onto the breathing leather of the couch. I felt the leather and plucked at it. I raised my head as Eve's eye caught mine. She looked like she wanted to send my head through the chair. I could visibly see a vein forming as she clenched her teeth. "Tim, this is serious," she replied, shaking her head with a chuckle. I nodded, acknowledging her words. "Well, what's going on?" I replied, turning to Jade. He took a deep breath and continued. "It's about Sam," he continued. "What is it now?" I replied, sitting back in an exaggerated manner. Jade turned to Eve, surprised by my response. He shook it off as he continued. "It's about your undertaking," he disclosed. I nodded, leaning forward as he spoke. "Well?" I pried impatiently. He raised his hand, signaling for me to give him a second. "It's about Sam's brother," he continued. The sarcasm seemed to suck out of me at the sound of his words. "Yesterday, after our talk, I started thinking about him. I checked the Heaven Realm BAUs, hoping to get an update on his whereabouts. Theoretically, I figured things may have been out of sorts since you guys made yourself known," he continued. "From time to time, some of the lower-level feeds will have interesting information. It's not uncommon for Light Guard prospects to check it for bounties and unofficial missions. I figured maybe I could filter the feed and look for things specific to Sam. So, I did a DNA search and I stumbled across Sam's brother." My eyelids went to my forehead as I shook my head. "I thought you said he was with his father," I replied. "I mean, what's changed?" Jade nodded to my response before catching himself and shaking his head no at the last minute. "Well, we thought he was," he continued. "But our information is constantly evolving based on the information we get. Before the Battle of New Angeles, yes, Sam's brother's whereabouts was a widely guarded secret in the Earth Realm. But with the chaos you guys caused, the ranks are in disarray. Like I said, it's the only reason I did the search. I was as surprised as anyone to find him. I sequestered the feed and collapsed it. You and your Legion mates are the only ones who will know this. Not even the Council knows this." "Why?" Eve cut in. "It's not safe. We don't want this getting out in the media and making things harder for Sam, Jade replied. Sam doesn't need to start checking into his family's history, not until he can understand things properly. I nodded, agreeing with his assertion. A baiting second passed before we continued. So, where is he? I replied. He leaned forward, preparing himself as he continued. That's why I need to speak with you, he explained. After I located his whereabouts, I locked in on his BAU feed. It seems that Isaiah knows as much about his father as Sam does. Like Sam, he's been in foster care since he was taken. He knows his father is Philip Rothman, but that's about it. Although those facts should be taken with a grain of salt, all we're getting is memory images. So it's very possible he's been taught to camouflage his memories. That being said, that's not why I'm telling you this. He waited, taking an exaggerated breath before continuing. Sam's brother is a rapture witness, he continued. What do you mean, a rapture witness? I responded. Sam's brother is one of the 140,000, the first one to be exact, he continued. He has made the decision to follow Christ. His words were startling. How? I replied. I thought we had to bring them to Christ. Jade shook his head. No, you will lead those that come to you, but you are not the only pathway, he explained. Isaiah's mother discipled him when he was younger, but when she died, he fluttered. Those stories Isaiah's mother used to tell him about revelations were just folktales to him until recent events. Now, the words of his mother have kept him safe, as he was able to see things for what they really were while everyone else couldn't. Understanding this, he broke away from his handlers as soon as he got wind of what was going on. Now he's out in the world, and it is only a matter of time before he's caught again. This mission is not a part of the undertaking, but I need you and Sam to get him and the rest of the escaped teens from their current location and take them to Angel Haven's church. It is coated with an anti-anointment metal. It'll protect them until New Eden is constructed. I stood up at the sound of his words. How? I replied. I mean, it's Sam's undertaking. We have enough on our plate. Can't you guys send someone else to do it? He shook his head. Remember, we are barred from the Earth realm until the Savior returns. I don't know how, but you must. With his new faith, they will kill him if he's apprehended, he continued in a pleading tone. And with you guys going to the academy for 4 years, he's the perfect shepherd. You said Michael said you need to focus on the people you're here to save, and that's exactly what this is. Get it done, one way or another. I turned to Eve with an exasperated, pleading expression. She gave me an empathetic nod, patting me on the back as we headed out. We exited the booth. The lobby was cleared, leaving no traffic in our path as we trotted to meet the rest of the guys. About time, Luke replied as I stepped aboard our transport. Yeah, we thought you guys were going to call in sick, Sai added as I plopped down in the seat across from her. Eve plopped down beside me as I tried my best to avoid eye contact with Sam. Tim, I heard, recognizing his voice immediately. I turned to him without saying a word. Look, I don't really remember what happened last night, he continued, but the guys, Nana Natty, kind of filled me in. But either way, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. You know, you tried to tell me to peel back. I should have listened. I shook my head at the sound of his words. No, I was the one who tried to pull it out of you. It was my bad. I apologized. He nodded, accepting my words before objecting subtly. Yeah, but even still, you warned me. I could have stopped it before it went too far. It was my fault. I should have known better, he continued. Forget it, I replied. Let's focus on the undertaking. He nodded as I turned to Pete and motioned for him and Uriah to come over and explain things to Sam. We spent the entirety of the ride explaining to him and re-explaining the plan to him. So what's it like? Sam wondered as we elevated on the pedestal. What's what like? I answered. You know, the pod thingy, he replied. It's weird at first, but it's kind of like that teleporter we used when we first met Michael, I replied. He scratched his head as if he was trying to force the memory. I don't remember that, he responded with a shrug. Well, all I can tell you is, it's weird, I shot back. I shook my head, ignoring the discussion, trying to focus on the match. Hey, do you remember that time we played Covington? He said, chuckling. I nodded, laughing to myself. I was surprised by his demeanor. He was still a kid at heart, and it was a good thing. The deck was so stacked against him, it was a good thing he was able to relax and compartmentalize it. Yeah, you mean the time you got kicked out of the game against Covington? I responded, shaking my head. He stopped with a playful stare. No, the time I cracked that big goof's helmet, he shot. I shook my head. No, I mean the time Coach had to peel that big goof off of you, I joked. I still can't understand why you did that. He stopped and smiled awkwardly. He cleaned your clock after the play, he replied. He was trying to hurt you. I nodded in a reminiscent manner. Yeah, but with him knocking me out, you were our last hope of winning the game. We lost because of that, I replied, shaking my head again. I didn't care about the stupid game, he shot back. He went after one of my friends, he replied, stopping awkwardly. I nodded in a grateful manner. I'm just saying, you would have probably done the same thing, he responded, looking away bashfully. I didn't even think about it. I just reacted. I nodded, agreeing with his statement. The pod stopped at the height of its ascent as Ms. Munoz met us as we exited. Ms. Munoz? Sam replied, recognizing her right away. Samuel, Timothy, she replied, leaning over to give us hugs. We both embraced her as Sam stepped back, looking her over. Not too shabby, Sam greeted jokingly. She twirled in a modeling manner, then curtsied. You like? She said, utilizing her normally absent Spanish accent. We both cracked smiles as she laughed. So, here we are again, huh, Timothy? She replied, escorting us over to our pods. I nodded as she took Sam to his pod first. Good luck. I know you'll do well, Sam. Just remember what I always told you, she replied with a wink. Sam nodded as the pod closed. I looked her over in a pressing manner as she turned around and relented. I found out Sam was a Christian when he first arrived, she continued without me saying a word. He was so afraid I was going to turn him in, but I just told him to keep doing what he was doing. Put God first, and everything will take care of itself. I said the same thing to him when he struggled and had a hard time fitting in. I also said it to him when he struggled to make the football team. I nodded as I hopped into the pod. So I'll say the same thing to you. Put God first, and everything will take care of itself, she replied, touching my hand lovingly. Thanks, Ms. Munoz, I replied as the pod closed. I felt the same sensation from my trial. The nervousness and surreal feeling was present and crippling. I closed my eyes, and before I could blink, I was standing on a hard pavement. The smell of trash and polluted air gave me déjà vu. I was back on Earth, but it wasn't the same Earth I remembered. It looked like a concrete jungle. We were in the middle of the New Angeles City Park, but it was no longer the tourist trap it was, to say the least. We were showing up literally moments after our last battle. The sizzling bodies and corpses were all over the place. The people we saved were walking around in a haze. Tim, Sam whispered from across the park. I sighed, getting ready to begin this ridiculous, daunting undertaking. I took a second to get my bearings before replying. Yeah, I'm over here, I replied, flash stepping to his side. He jolted from my sudden appearance. You have got to teach me how to do that, he shot, staring me up and down. It's easy. Get about 10,000 times faster than you are right now, then make it so your body can literally turn into pure light through dematerialization," I replied smugly. "Ha ha ha," he shot back, holding his stomach in a mocking manner. I shook my head, imagining how hard it was going to be for me to finally be the responsible one.
"Tim, can you guys hear me?"
Pete broke in like a saving grace. "Yeah, we got you, Pete," Sam replied.
"Okay, let's get going," he instructed. "Make sure your faith energy is concealed, stay hidden, and get to the base."
We trekked around a couple of buildings as people wandered around in a daze. A large light shined as a group of emergency vehicles arrived. A man stuck his head out the window and pointed to the group of people. As he did, a faint cloud began to gather over the head of the groggy group of people. "Do you feel that?" I asked, feeling the presence of dark faith energy almost immediately. Sam shook his head. "I don't have extra sensory feel, but I can smell it like it's burned into my nose," he replied angrily. I looked up as demons began to drop from the sky like rain. They were low level, but I knew what it meant. They were going to devour these people. "We have to do something," Sam shot immediately.
"No, you can't,"
Pete replied, cutting in. "Pete's right. If you guys do, you're just going to bring heat to your position. It's going to be harder to make it to the base," Uriah added. We were stuck between a rock and a hard place. I stared as the people scrambled as the demons charged. "There's no way," Sam replied.
"Sam!"
Pete screamed, trying to stop him. Boom! Sam hit one of the demons with a blow that sent it flying into a nearby wall.
"Senda!"
Boom! Before the demon could muster the words, I reacted, exploding him with a kick that sent him flying into the ground, creating a crater. A demon let out a yelp that sounded like an alarm. As he did, I blinked and we were surrounded by an army of demons. And these guys looked mean. It wasn't like Venus. These guys weren't low-level beasts. These were S and E class rogues, and there were hundreds of them.
"Sam, this is why I said what I said," Pete harped. "We just left this place. Literally minutes have passed. Jacob just destroyed the entire base, and we just took out 3 high-ranking rogues. It's a hot zone. An elite task force has been sent. That's exactly why the plan was to be discreet. That's what made this an E-class undertaking. Man!"
I stared as the team surrounded us. They looked like they could crush us with one hand. I felt I could possibly hold my own, but not with an E-class. We were light guard prospects, and Sam wasn't even a good one. We had no place to go, and there was no way we're going to be able to fight. What were we going to do? "These guys smell," Sam added, covering his nose as he spoke. "It's like hot sewer water." I ignored him as I looked around. They were intimidating. They weren't roaring or making threats. They just stood in front of us, waiting in fighting stance like trained assassins. I pulled my hood over my face to hide my identity. Sam saw me and followed suit. The smell was the least of my worries. Their power made me queasy. I wished I could cut my extra sensitive touch, but it was the only way I could sense the danger around me. The Legion crept towards us before one of the high gates broke in. "Halt!" said one of them as he hovered high above our heads. As he spoke, the Legion stopped and stood at attention like robots. "Are you two a part of the Legion we're looking for?" said one of the men. I stood, not saying a word, hoping Sam would follow suit. I didn't know how to respond without putting us in further danger, but I knew I needed to do something.
"Tim, Uriah and I are going to cut out,"
Pete replied.
"It's protocol. If you guys are linked through BAU, then they are connected to the BAU net here in the Heaven Realm if they capture you guys. So any minute we are going to cut out. Trust me, help is coming. Just sit tight and don't do anything stupid. Me, Jacob, Beth, and Eve are in the mix. We are eligible because we've already been admitted. We can travel to the Earth Realm without violating the Earth Realm restrictions. They're going to send us because we are the only ones they can send. Just keep Sam safe and be careful."
"Pete?" I muttered via BAU. There was no response. "Who are you two?" another Highgate declared angrily. "None of your business, jerk," Sam shot back. Flicker! Before Sam could react, I saw a flicker, and the man was standing behind Sam. He was fast, but he was nothing in relation to Jacob, Sai, and I. Wham! I caught him with a punch before he could blink that sent him flipping across the terrain. "Hey!" I screamed to the group of people behind me. "Run now!" The people looked at me for a second or two, then fled in the opposite direction as Sam and I stood guarding them, making sure they could get away clean. Before the group could move, they all seemed to be frozen in their spots. "Let them go, walking vomit farts," Sam ordered. "Fenrir, who is this boy?" said one of the Highgates, ignoring Sam's words. His eyes were vacant black as he spoke. He was using some sort of demonic BAU. I stood motionless as he moved his head back and forth, as if he was being possessed. "Oh, wow, what a treat," he said, moving his head around in a creepy demonic way. "It's the Eli. This is one of the remnants from the new Theta Legion." I knew who it was right away. It was Fenrir, the Nephilim from our fight at the Bermuda Triangle during my undertaking with Herschel. He was using the Highgate as a vessel to scoop the scenery. "Theta Delta, you ugly bum!" Sam shot. "Sam, be quiet," I ordered. "Why?" Sam fired. "These goons don't scare me." I shook my head as I turned to him. "It doesn't matter if you're scared of them or not. We can't beat all these guys by ourselves, and if we lose, the undertaking is over. You lose your chance at the academy, and so do we," I fired. He looked at me in an apologetic manner. "Who are you, boy?" said Fenrir, agitated. "My name is..." "Fenrir, why don't you show up here and let's finish what we started?" I responded quickly to get the attention off of Sam the best way I knew how. "Let these people go." All I could do was stall him at this point and hope the rest of the guys could get here in time. Sam stared at me, surprised by my interruption. Pete had warned me this could be a possibility, but neither of us counted on it being so soon. He explained that morning it would take time because of the cut-off express wormholes to the Earth realm. At least I knew it wasn't going to take as long as the Venus trip, but I knew I had a little while before they arrived here. "What's the big idea?" Sam responded via BAU. It was so hard to maintain a conversation with Sam with so many secrets. I felt the pressure of spilling the beans every time I had to speak to him. "Sam, it's important that we don't let these guys know who we are," I replied. "That's easy for you to say. They already know who you are," he shot, confused. "It's kind of cool. I want them to know me too. You know, like the movies." We both stared forward, trying to be as transparent as possible. I rolled my eyes, annoyed by his words. "Just shut up and listen, Sam," I shot quickly. He nodded surprisingly as the Highgate spoke up. "Trap them and bring them back alive. I can tell by their uniforms they've made it to the Heaven Realm. They're back here for an undertaking of some sort. Bring them back. Let's see if we can get information out of them," Fenrir responded, as the Highgate's eyes returned to their former state. "Let's get this over with," the Highgate responded. "Send the 10th line to scout. Alpha Hawk formation. We'll take it after that. It's only 2 of them," he ordered in a rallying cry type manner. I looked at Sam with a worried look on my face. He nodded in my direction. "You ready?" he replied via BAU while turning to me. "Yeah, it's just like Angel Haven days, huh?" I replied with my heart in my throat. "You watch my back and I'll watch yours. The rest of the guys are on their way. We just have to hold out." He showed a nervous smile and nodded in my direction. "Like always, you start it and I'll finish it," he replied. "Who are you kidding?" I replied. "I haven't been in a fight you didn't start." His power was fluctuating wildly. He was nervous, and I could tell. He was afraid, and I didn't blame him. These guys were like nothing he had faced before. I had grown accustomed to being thrown in the fire, but this was Sam's first real fight, and I was sure he was on pins and needles. "Squad 239, let us be the ones to bring in the first of the Theta Legion. We all will be promoted and gain fame for our squad. 239, 239, 239, he replied, pumping the soldiers up. "They're just children. We won't end this battle without bringing them back. Clear?" Roar! They all responded in unison. Sam almost jumped at the roar of their voice. He wasn't ready. I could feel his BAU, and his nerves were out of control. "Sam," I replied, trying to be the mature one for once. "Calm down." "What do you mean?" he shot out loud. "I'm fine. I'm just anxious." I turned to him with a cynical glare. "Sam, there's nothing wrong with being nervous," I replied. "I promise I got your back this time around. Just calm down." He turned to me angrily, offended by my words, even though his heart was still beating like a drum. "I'm not nervous. I'm anxious, and I promise I'm the one that's got your back this time around," he shot. "I'll show you all. I'm not dead weight. I can fight. I'll beat these goons, get the sword, and beat the crap out of that ABA Leo as well." I shook my head, growing more agitated and nervous by the second. "Sam, I responded, exasperated. "Just watch out for yourself, idiot." I wasn't expecting him to admit it, but I did need him focused, and with his nerves out of whack, there was no telling what the result would be. "Same to you," he replied. "Attack! Zip, zip, zip!" I prepared myself, as the assassin-like unit surrounded us instantly. The 10th line. There were hundreds of them. "Sam, Theta stance," I ordered. I wasn't Pete. I could fight for myself just fine, but battle strategy wasn't one of my strong points. I adapted. I wasn't a general, I was a soldier. I was used to following plans, not making them. I racked my mind, trying to remember the battle formations Pete had gone over with me in our preparation, and how to apply them to each battle. "Who's going to lead?" he replied. "I'll lead. We'll use a liquid frame with an ice shield. We can use the terrain as our offensive assault tool," I ordered as quickly as possible. "Okay, go, go," Sam ordered. "Element Beta, Water Command, Theta Base," I replied, causing a water shield to form around me. The squad backed away, looking at me in awe. "Did you see that?" said one of the Highgates. "This kid just pulled that massive base from the atmosphere. How could he do that? The elements haven't obeyed a son of Adam like that since Moses. Who is this boy?" I had no idea what was so impressive about it, but if it gave them hesitation about attacking, I wasn't going to complain. "Yaziel," another one of the Highgates responded. "Silence!" "This kid is obviously a liquid trait with a water affinity," another continued. "Even so," Yaziel replied. "Is it? Or maybe you're just not cut to be a third seat," the other one fired back. "Don't you remember they took a part of Aaron's staff from the Atlantis compound? Look at his back. It's obvious he's combined it with the staff of Moses." I looked at my staff. I had forgotten all about it. Was it really why I could control water so effortlessly? "Silence! Whatever the reason, we'll find out soon enough when we get him back to the base," the lead Highgate replied. He was a muscular guy with long black hair pulled back into a ponytail. He had piercing blue eyes and fangs that showed themselves every time he spoke. He wore a badge with the last name Aarings on it. I wanted to take advantage of the commotion while we had the chance. We had to act fast. "Okay, go Sam, hurry," I ordered. "Element Epsilon, Earth Command, Crater Base," Sam commanded, striking the ground with ground-shaking force. Rise, tower! The ground formed a crater which narrowed the attack radius. Sam wasn't on par yet, but if we narrowed their attack angles and raised the terrain around us, we had a better chance of fending off these guys, until Jacob and the rest of the Legion arrived. Clever, Aerings responded. Good to see the Heaven Realm is useful for something other than creating slaves. Too bad it won't help. Sixth line, go! Flicker. As he spoke, another group of assassins appeared. This is the sixth line. They're close-range teleports, and dematerialization is their specialty. So, I'm afraid you still are looking at an uphill battle, boy, he gloated. Well, Sam added, you have no idea what you're up against. You're fighting the top players in the game. You're the one fighting an uphill battle. I stared at him, shaking my head. Aerings chuckled to himself. Attack, he ordered. Flicker. I prepared myself as a few of the rebel linemen teleported into the barrier. Spin. I flipped over the first attack, but I couldn't react fast enough to protect Sam. Sam! The sixth line smashed against the ice shield as the dematerializing assassins flashed through, catching Sam and knocking him hard into the crater wall. Smash! I flashed to his side, grabbing Sam. I clotheslined the first assassin with force that seemed to take his head off. I flash-stepped again, catching one with a back elbow. Punch! I adjusted just in time to catch another charging one with a hook that sent him flipping across the terrain, like a fish on the deck of a boat. That boy, he's like the one who took the base. His speed and power, said Yaziel, standing with his arms crossed. He was a burly man with red hair and an eccentrically cut beard. He had light green eyes and muscles that seemed to bulge from under his uniform. He talked with a thick Irish accent and had a badge with a large 3 on it. He was in an exchange with another first lineman, who was a black man with a bald head. He towered over the rest of the linemen, standing at about 7 feet tall. He wore a tag with a large 4 on it that read King. No, the one who took the base was a god. The reports said there was lightning. Though he uses the flash technique, he's an elemental, said King. No, isn't it obvious? He's clearly not just an elemental. He's too physically imposing. No, I think he has a metaphysical adapt trait of some sort, you idiots, Aerings added. The trait is extremely rare normally. I've never seen one that can evolve adapting different class traits to a remnant's palette. Add the fact that most adapt traits normally progress extremely fast, it makes sense that his development would mature so rapidly. He's not the one who attacked the base. He's one of the remnants who fought here. He's gone to the Heaven Realm and returned with some new tricks. I stared at them as another assassin attacked. It was eerie. I could hear their words, but I couldn't understand how I was doing. They were speaking via BAU, but for some reason I could hear them, and from their conversation it was obvious they didn't realize it. Wham! Sam caught one of them with a fierce right hook. Tim, wake up, he replied. I can't do this by myself. I shook it off and continued. Oof! I followed up with a double leg drop kick into the chest of one of the assassins. Kick! I landed hard on my back, then flipped to my feet just in time to catch another demon with a back kick that took his head off. Kick! Wham! Sam caught another one with a quick front kick, then a shoulder block that sent it flying. We're kicking their butts, Sam uttered. He wasn't as fast as I was, but he was an adept fighter. For now, that was enough. Slowly, I felt his confidence building with every blow. This time I was making up for my earlier mistakes. I was fast enough to cover for him, and no matter how slow he was, I wasn't going to give up on him. I would have his back no matter what. Let's continue our focus on the dematerialization, but we have to hurry. My ice shield will only last for so long, and these guys are their lower ranks, I instructed. Sam nodded in my direction. You want to just nuke these guys? He replied. What do you mean? I responded. Just give me the time. I've been practicing something, he instructed. Just focus on the 6th line. I'll take care of the 10th, he instructed. Just trust me. I might not be able to use my energy while fighting, but as long as I can concentrate it bit by bit, I can do some damage. Wham! I smashed another assassin with a front kick. I couldn't resist as we continued to battle. Yeah, you'll do damage all right, to me, I responded. Sam turned to me, breathing hard with a smile. You can't make a salad without breaking some eggs, he fired. Omelet. I'm sure most salads don't have eggs, I shot. Yeah, well, something can't be made without breaking some eggs, Sam replied. Sheesh. Shut up and give me some time, Tim. No problem, I replied with a tired chuckle. Wham! I landed a shot that sent a shockwave to the side of the face of one of the assailants. Spin! I pulled my staff off my back and began to twirl it in a circle, creating a whirlpool that caught the remaining assailants in the vicinity. Explode! I slammed it into the ground, creating an electric shock that sizzled them. Element Epsilon Earth Command Stone Spurs, I replied, pulling rocks up like raindrops. Pepper, pepper. I shot them toward the men, peppering them with bullets like rock shots. Vanish, dodge, vanish! They dodged and dematerialized, and the second they did, wham! I was putting a fist down their throats. This newfound speed of mine was on another level. It made me feel invincible. I had speed, and if the speed wasn't fast enough, I could teleport. If the teleporting wasn't fast enough, I could slow down time to evade and dematerialize. And to top it all off, I had the ability to counter almost any fighter, and the power to make my strikes count. Throwing in the fatigue evolution my body had gone through from the hour-long battle on Venus, I had every weakness accounted for. I mowed them down while defending Sam with ease. I could have gone on for hours. Keep it up, Sam ordered. I think I got it. I turned to see him holding a large ball of static electricity that flickered violently in the palm of his hand. You ready? He replied, standing up. His hair was covered in light like mine was earlier in the trials, but it was only the tips of his right side. The same side his energy was emanating from. The static energy created the similar light tattoos on Sam that I had, except mine was white and his was the color of a red fire. It was eerie watching it from the outside. I've been ready. Let's do it, I responded. On the count of 5. 5. Wham! I caught another one as he attempted to attack. 4. I sent a violent wind, keeping a group of them at bay. 3. Element Gamma Fire Command Breathing Lion, I replied, sending a flame, desperately fighting to give Sam some room. They sensed Sam was preparing for a power attack, and they were attacking more ferociously to get to him. Tim, right! Sam ordered, pointing toward an oncoming assailant. Wham! I smashed the assailant with a drop kick that sent it flipping violently. 2. Swoosh! I created another typhoon, spinning in a circle with my arms extended. 1. Go! I screamed, releasing my shield. Sam leaped out of the crater as all the 10th Lion attacked, surrounding him immediately. He spun as the light seemed to cover him. He looked like a static bulb as the light grew large as he finally released it. Kaboom! I stood in awe as Sam landed right next to me. I couldn't believe my eyes. The power, the effectiveness. His power was insane. He took out the entire 10th line and half of the block along with it before collapsing to one knee, exhausted. I patted him on the back as he chuckled happily. Am I the best or what? He replied. I looked at him for a second. I watched him not responding as an awkward silence ensued. I couldn't vouch for the best claim, but after his display, I was starting to realize there was a lot more to Sam than met the eye. Okay, Aarons grunted, staring at Sam angrily. "Lines 9 through 7, go!" Within seconds, they had Sam surrounded. Whiff! They were fast, but I was still faster. Punch, wham, bam, wham! I mowed them down. Everything was moving in slow motion. I saw their moves like they were paused, moving frame by frame, but to everyone else, I was a blur. "I've never seen a kid at that age move that fast," King replied. "You heard Fenrir, he's an Eli," Aarons replied. "Nothing about that tribe surprises me, no matter how young they are." I still couldn't understand how I could hear their BAU. It had me unsettled, but at the time it was an added advantage, and I couldn't risk doing anything by prodding and tipping my hand. "Lucky for us he's attached to that loser," he replied, raising his hand in a signaling motion. "Line 8, timeline, pull." Stutter! I stopped, almost like I had a chain around my neck. My body seemed to stutter, like a car running out of gas. "Urgh!" I grunted, pushing forward. Pow! Wham! I landed 2 kicks, shielding Sam, feeling the energy suffocate. It seemed like the further I pushed, the tighter the energy around me became, until I was back to moving at normal speed. "It looks like the time pull has slowed him down," Yaziel replied. "As talented as he is, it's still just all anointed natural ability. He has no training. He's still just a novice prospect. And as long as he keeps trying to defend that dead weight, we know exactly where to place the time warp." It was a trap. I used my anointed sight, and I could see what they were speaking about. Sam was surrounded by a time vortex. He couldn't see it, but with my speed it was like running through molasses, and all the energy I exerted to do the minimum was draining me. "What's going on?" Sam asked, watching me collapse to one knee. "Nothing," I replied, trying to keep a straight face. "Then why do you look so terrible?" he asked as the demons prepared for another strike. Just as they were about to charge, King raised his hand, halting them in their tracks. "Simple," he cut in, catching both our attention. "We have you trapped in a time vortex, and he's working overtime to save you because you're a pathetic dead weight who has no business being here." Sam cut his eyes at his words. I stared at him, wanting to rip him apart for the words. "As long as you're here, he's going to keep trying to protect you, and the more he does that, the more of his energy Line 7 will drain while Line 8 slows him down," he continued. Sam turned to me in an empathetic manner. "Is he telling the truth?" he asked. "Don't let him get to you," I replied, avoiding the question. "Tim, tell me the truth. Are you about to sacrifice yourself to protect me?" he continued. I begrudgingly nodded my head. He closed his eyes and lowered his head in an ashamed manner. "Don't worry, I'll crack it. I always do," I replied angrily. "I'll get us out of this." Sam shook his head no. "No, you're going to get yourself killed," he replied. "You said you trusted me, Tim. Trust me." I shook my head in an apologetic manner. "I can't," I replied. "Sam, you're just not good enough. Not yet. They'll kill you. And if you die here, you're done." He lowered his head. The hurt was written on his face, but deep down I could tell from his expression he understood where I was coming from. "I'll show you," he replied powerfully. "I'll show all of you." His power was great, but he was still holding back. The spirit was still on his mind, and he wasn't going to be a match for anyone at the level he was. He stopped his power elevation well short of its threshold. "Sam, don't do anything stupid," I replied, knowing the outcome before I finished my sentence. "Rah!" Sam shot off toward the legion of demons, catching me off guard. What was he doing? "Line 6, attack!" Flash! I shot in front of Sam, feeling my energy being pulled in 12 different directions. Wham! Pip, pip, pip! I drop-kicked one, turning him into a human missile as he went flying, taking out a line of demons. Element Gamma, Fire Command, Lion Flame, I replied, incinerating another set of them. With every move, I felt my body becoming heavier and heavier. I could literally feel my faith and light energy being sucked out of me. How long could I keep this up? Sam was right. I was going to get myself killed. I'm going to beat the crap out of you jerks, Sam added, swinging with everything he had in him, trying to end things with one blow. Duck, duck, punch! Sam swung for the fence as demon after demon dodged him with ease. They landed punch after punch, knocking him around like a practice dummy before leveling him with a bone-shattering shot that sent him sliding across the floor. I stared on helpless as I felt like my body weighed 1,000 pounds as one of them leveled him with yet another punch. Whoosh! I blew a flame that was limp in comparison to my last one. The demons brushed it off like it was a smoke bomb and turned their attention to me. Wham! I was hit so hard, the momentum sent me into a nearby pillar, then to my butt. I sat, breathing heavily, hungover. I looked down and shuddered at the sight. My chest was caved in, and I could barely breathe as blood leaked from my mouth. Sam, I replied, unable to move. He must not know that here in the Earth realm, that body of his isn't as strong once it's choked of faith energy, said Aarings. Yeah, what's his deal? Does this loser really matter that much to him? Yaziel added. Does he realize this kid is just slowing him down? Aarings turned to him, still speaking via BAU. That's why they will always be weak. A man who has everything to fight for can never be as dangerous as a person who has nothing to lose. Remember what Lucifer said. The reason we will win the final battle is because we are willing to do things they are not, sacrifice things they can't. Yes! They all chanted as they surrounded me and Sam, getting louder with each word. Yes! The explosion was so loud and powerful it cleared half the demons with its impact. As the debris and smoke cleared, I looked up to see Jacob standing in front of me. You demons seem to not have heard me the first time, so I'll say it one, boom! A lightning strike crackled loudly, eliminating everything around him. More, wham! With one punch, the entire line was gone. Somehow he was faster than he showed during his trial. This time I couldn't follow him outside the final punch. Time! He finished, eviscerating everything around him. No one touches my little brother. Aarings' eyes focused on Jacob. He's definitely the one who took out the base, he said calmly. King and Yaziel turned to him attentively. Then let's destroy him, King added confidently. Aarings chuckled slightly, then turned to him with a blank look. Sure, killer, go ahead, Aarings continued. Me, I have led us as long as I have because I am great at picking my battles. I have seen prodigies before. I've seen good remnants before. As a matter of fact, I've seen great remnants before. They aren't this. That kid is different. There's talented, there's powerful, and then there are people like this kid. No one knows why he gives them the power he does, but you can't hope to meet it without an army. And as of right now, we don't have one. So I say we count ourselves lucky he's only here to protect them. King turned to him angrily. Are you saying you're afraid? Yaziel added. Aarings turned to him with a look that seemed to cut Yaziel like a knife. He straightened up, cowering in a threatened manner. No, I'm saying this guy took out an S-class lieutenant with a blow and almost exorcised a head captain after taking down one of our most fortified compounds on Earth, he replied, turning to Yaziel. I think that has earned him the respect of a cautious approach. We'll have our opportunity, but not right now. It's not smart to engage. We might survive it, but the only thing keeping the other two at bay is the line. He just took out our 6th line in a matter of seconds. So, as I said, we might survive, maybe even our first line, but we'll lose too many men. I stared at the man, still struggling to breathe as I spoke without thinking. "I thought you weren't afraid to lose anything," I fired. He cut his eyes at my words. I exposed the fact that I could read their BAUs in an angry spat, and I was kicking myself for revealing the advantage before getting any valuable information. "So you can hear us," he replied via BAU. "Interesting." I tried to sell ignorance, but I could tell he wasn't buying it. "Good to know," he replied with a snickering smile. It seemed like within a blink of an eye, the entire unit was gone. I wanted to be jealous or upset, but at that moment I was just a scared kid, happy his big brother was there. "You okay?" Jacob replied, sticking his arm out. His light energy wrapped around me like a cloud and seeped into my caved-in chest and dispersed, leaving me spotless. "Man, I wanted to mash those jerks," Sam replied, limping over to me. "I'm fine. Well, now," I replied, making it to my feet. Jacob turned to Sam with an angry stare as he helped me to my feet. "Listen to me, Sam. This thing you have with going all out at the expense of the people around you is getting old," Jacob added. "Accept the fact that right now you are who you are. You're not talented, your fighting is clunky and terrible, you rely on kill shots, and to make matters worse, you are too impatient to strategize properly. Accept it, all of it, because if you don't, you are going to—" Sam lowered his head bashfully. Jacob showed a visible regret as he sighed sympathetically. "Look, you're not as smart as Pete, you're not as talented as Tim, Cy, or Eve. Right now, I hate to say it, but you have to hear this. Sam, right now, you are awful," Jacob replied. I turned to Jacob angrily, but he stopped me, motioning for me to let him handle it. I wanted to stop him, but a part of me knew Sam needed to hear it. What he was doing was reckless, and as hard as it was for me to say, I was going to be the one to pay the price. "But you have something those guys don't have," Jacob replied, catching me off guard. "It's more important than being smart or naturally gifted, and one day it's going to be the thing that makes you the most important part of this legion, and maybe even the strongest." Sam looked up at Jacob as he spoke. He was as surprised to hear his words as I was. "You have more faith than almost any person I've ever seen," Jacob continued. "You have the ability to believe in Father Yahweh when normal human beings wouldn't. Through all your pain and hardships, you have an unbreaking belief in the power of Father Yahweh. The one thing you lack is belief in Father Yahweh's trust and his ability to empower you. Trust me, once you do that, you'll be able to control that power of yours. But with that being said, do me a favor. Until you achieve that, keep your cousin alive by sticking to the plan." Sam nodded proudly. "How?" Sam asked angrily. "I mean, I tried to not be scared and just believe in myself, but nothing happens." Jacob shook his head. "It's about belief, not playing a role. Learn to understand the difference. My dad always says, just because a person says they believe that God is able to do something, doesn't mean they believe he'll do that something for them. Faith and belief are intertwined, but they are not mutual. Faith is the belief that draws the Holy Spirit. It allows us to be protected because we have expressed our need for it. Faith is the belief that something is possible even though it is not proven fact. It wavers and fluctuates. Belief is the limitation of the mind. It doesn't fluctuate. It is because it is. There is no explanation for it, but the belief is there. When you understand the difference between the two, then you'll be able to better understand how to use your massive faith energy." "I have massive faith energy?" Sam responded. "Yeah, even I can feel it," I added. He turned to me, nodding bashfully. "To be truthful, you have about 10 times the faith energy of anybody on our squad. Well, almost anyone. You just haven't learned to use it," Jacob continued. "I do? You're saying I have more faith energy than everyone on our squad except you? Sam continued. Jacob shook his head, turning to me. I looked at him, then looked around, trying to figure out who he was referring to. No, you have more faith energy than everyone except him, Jacob replied, pointing in my direction. Me? I replied, surprised. I thought I had the worst of anyone. Jacob shook his head. The reason you're able to tap into such power is because you have such a deep reservoir. Both of you have potential. Your ability to utilize your faith energy is hindered by the same thing, but in different ways. You both believe in yourselves. Tim, you have a belief in yourself that can border on narcissism at times. While it allows you to tap into Father Yahweh's power, it's not the same as believing in Father Yahweh's belief in you. Pride is an idiotic belief in yourself. It hinders your belief in Father Yahweh. Sam, you have belief in miracles, which is also an idiotic belief in karma and natural occurrence of the universe. It's not the same as having belief in Father Yahweh's belief in you either. Both of you have symptoms of programming from your years on Earth. There is no natural occurrence, and believing in yourself means nothing if it isn't centered in your belief in Father Yahweh. In this world, you are getting help from heaven or hell. Belief in heaven empowers the human spirit and builds up over time. Belief in yourself and this corrupt world handicaps the human spirit and erodes power over time. With the help of seducing demons, seemingly impossible things can be done under the guise of miracles and the power of self-belief, but it's all a sham. It's all aided by the rebel angels to weaken mankind, he continued. You two have thoughts that are mental scars and handicaps that were programmed into you from a young age. If you want to make it through this thing, you have got to change them fast. Stop with this insane belief in yourself and the power of miracles. Slowly build up the faith energy you need to truly believe. I stared down at the terrain, taking in his words as Sam turned toward him. How do you know all this? Sam replied. I've been training for this my whole life. My dad hit me to the scene a long time ago, Jacob replied. We both nodded. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anything about his words. Nothing about the fact that Jacob had been getting special training, and I felt nothing about my dad keeping me in the dark. Either I was maturing, or it had something to do with the energy drain. Thanks, Jake, but we have to get going, I replied, standing up. He nodded as he created a wormhole with a flick of his wrist with his medallion. Be careful, he replied. Once I leave, this portal will be closed, and it may take even longer to get back, so use your brain and follow the plan. No more heroics from either of you. Sam, show these guys what you can do. When you finish that, get back and kick this guy's butt. Sam nodded, trying to hold back a smile. Come on, this is me, he replied. You know I will. Jacob chuckled, then turned to me. Remember, the key to that power of yours is the belief that you are the best option for saving your friends. I know it's hard to balance that without becoming prideful, but you'll find your way. I trust you, Jacob replied, as he turned with his back to me as he entered the portal. I nodded, tossing my backpack over my shoulder. Sam followed suit. Let's go, I replied. Hold up, Sam replied, jogging over to the innocent bystanders as they hid in fear. They all recoiled as he neared them. What are you guys? One of them replied, shielding the others. How can you do that? Are you aliens? He was a burly guy with a cut-off t-shirt and gym pants. He had a buzz cut that was fashioned in the shape of a mohawk. Sam chuckled, shaking his head as I approached slowly, not wanting to scare them more than they already were. I'm not an alien. I'm human like you, he replied. That's Tim over there, and the guy who just went through the whole thingy is my big cousin Jacob. We are all human, born and raised right here on Earth. His words did little to calm them as they backpedaled, still terrified. I don't believe you. You're a part of these alien abductions and attacks going on all over the place, another guy replied, Yeah, I saw it on the news, another shot. Sam looked at me, not knowing what to say. No, those weren't alien attacks, Sam added. It was the beginning of the end of days, you know, from the Bible. They all looked bewildered by his words as I finally caught up to him. The Bible? No one's read the Bible in years. Are you crazy? After the AARM, people have been afraid of it. Besides, what good will that do? All the people who have read it have been abducted or killed. Why would we touch it? The burly guy replied. It's the only way you guys can be saved, Sam replied. They all snickered at his words. I looked at Sam as I could see the pain and empathy in his eyes. Sam, these aren't people who are open-minded about Christianity. These are people who were programmed to fear and hate Christianity from the time they could talk. Talking to them isn't going to work, I shot via BAU. He nodded, turning to them empathetically. Well, find a Bible. Trust me, it'll save you. All of you, he replied. How? They replied, confused at varying times. That book will explain everything that is happening now. The abductions, the killings, even the natural disasters. It's all there. It also helps you prepare for the future, I cut in. Read and find the one and only way to be saved. It'll explain those people weren't abducted. They were taken to heaven like us. And the others weren't killed for nothing. They were killed because they refused to take the mark of the beast and were also taken to heaven. So we are supposed to believe that we're not supposed to take the food mark? One of them replied. What? Another responded. What are you talking about, Jerry? This mark he's talking about. I heard about it on the news. When these aliens showed up, it caused a global shift which caused natural disaster. It killed 1/3 of the world's food supply. The UN was able to secure a small sect of it, but they couldn't reach everyone because of the alien attacks. They're using the old internet via these www chip marks, but they have to find people willing to undergo the experiment. It's a risk, so people refuse to take it. But if you don't have it, they have no way of getting food to you, which means you have no food, which means no bartering chips, which means no money to buy anything that you may need. The rich are fine, but we poor and middle-class people will be the ones to suffer. These aliens want us to refuse the mark so that we can't communicate with each other, he continued. They want us to use their Bibles because it's some type of homing signal in the writing that'll lead them right to us. That's how the others got abducted. Trust me, I've been studying this since the disasters happened. They've been planning this from the beginning. This Jesus guy was the first alien, a scout or something, and the rest of them are coming now. I stared at him like he was crazy. Then why do they fight to protect us? Another replied. The guy turned to the others with a cynical stare. Isn't it obvious? He continued. We're commodities. They're the ones who want to enslave us, and the others want to wipe us out and take over the planet. What? Sam shot. That's a lie. I cut my eyes at the irony of it all. Every piece fell into place. The dream I had was from the future. The devil had formulated the perfect lie. Is it? The guy continued. That book has been setting us up to be enslaved since the beginning of time. I felt a shudder surge through me at the sound of his words. I knew that feeling. It wasn't human. It was demonic. I could tell right away. You're possessed, I blurted, pointing at him. Exactly, said Uriah, cutting in. Uriah? I replied. What happened? Where have you been? Like I said before, we're disconnected in accordance with protocol. Now that the demons are gone, we're in the clear, he continued. Your mind was still affected, but I guess when you ID this guy, it broke the sync. What are you talking about? The man replied, playing possum. I knew I smelt something funny, Sam added. I thought it was left over from the other demons. I focused on him. It's stanching off of him. The man showed a demonic smile, then turned to run. Before he could move, I had him by the shirt. What do I do? I replied via BAU. If I exorcise this guy, these people are going to believe he's telling the truth. I know, Sam added. But if we let him go, he's going to corrupt more people.
It doesn't matter. Exorcise the demon and maybe the man can be saved. These people have heard both stories. It's on them now, Uriah ordered angrily. If Father Yahweh doesn't take away free will, how can we? We can't hell-proof the world. You did what you could. The decision is theirs to make. No man comes to the Father except he be drawn by the Christ. We don't convince anyone. We speak the truth, and those drawn by the Spirit hear it. I exhaled as they all stared at me in horror. In the name of Emmanuel the Christ and the Holy Spirit, I command you to come out of this man and return to hell, I replied, as the man convulsed violently, then fell to the ground. He killed him! A woman yelled as a group of them took off. I was surprised to see a small group of them cower, but not run. The man slowly sat up, confusing the onlookers. "What's going on?" he replied groggy. "Jerry," said the burly man, "are you okay?" He nodded, blinking in an exhausted manner. "I'm free," he replied, turning to the man. "It's been weeks that thing has been possessing me. It's been horrible." His friend looked at him like he was crazy. "Jerry, what are you talking about?" another man replied. "Thank you, son. Thank you," he replied, hugging me, ignoring everything else. "Jerry," the man added, frustrated, "what did they do to you?" He shook his head, turning to his friend for the first time. "They freed me," he continued. "Everything they said is the truth. That demon showed me everything. They're all like a collective consciousness. I could see everything, all their memories, thoughts, brutality. It's all like a cloud database. It was horrible." The man stared at him cautiously. "How do we know they didn't do something to make you say this?" his friend responded. "You don't, but I'm following their lead. You can do what you want," he replied, turning to us. "Son, is there a way? Where can I find the Bible?" I turned to Sam, not knowing what to say. It was 1 out of 30, but the feeling was amazing. I saved someone, not just physically, but I had given him a salvation that he would be forever grateful for. He had no idea of the paradise that this small step had guaranteed him. It was so rewarding just knowing I had given someone something that great. "Yes," Sam replied, rummaging through his backpack. "Here, it was a present from my godmother, but you need it more than me, so you can have it." I smiled as the man eagerly took the book and hid it in his shirt pocket. "So, are you saying that in this book will be all the answers to what is going on?" he continued, staring at it like it was the Holy Grail. "Everything?" As he held it, a group of people surrounded him. "Do you guys have any more?" they replied bashfully. I nodded, reaching into my bag and pulling out a handful of the Bibles out of the prepared stock I thought would be useless. "Keep those safe," I replied, "and keep yourselves safe, as a matter of fact." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my medallion and created a wormhole. "This is a hot zone," I replied. "They're spinning things in other parts of the country. You'll be safe in my home until we get back. Soon we'll figure out something long-term, but getting you out of this hot zone is all that matters right now." They all stared at me hesitantly. "I promise it's no trick," I replied. "It's just a portal hole, one of the perks of heaven." Jerry sighed and nodded, not even hesitating as he walked through. "Wow, this place is huge," he replied on the other side of the portal door. The rest of the group slowly followed suit as I smiled passionately. Sam looked like he was about to burst out of himself. Just as the last one walked through, a teen came jogging from the other side of a building. "Wait for me," she replied, breathing hard as she jogged toward us. She had run with the previous mob. I nodded, acknowledging her as she made her way back. "I don't know if you guys are any better, but I know you can't be any worse than them," she replied, bending over at the knees. "It's only a matter of time before they get caught by whoever the enemy is, and I want to be as far away from them as possible when that happens." I nodded, smiling. "Well, we're here to save who is ever willing,"
I replied robotically. Well, count me in, she replied. She moved her hair to the side and stood up for the first time. Her face caused a feeling of déjà vu to flow through me. She was the girl from my future vision. She was the girl from my dream. She smiled as her face became more familiar with every passing second. It's not that I don't believe you, she replied apologetically. It's actually not the first time I've heard it. Her words piqued my interest. What do you mean? I asked. Well, my friend Isaiah, he used to talk about this stuff like that all the time, she replied, censoring herself apologetically. I ignored her mannerisms, focusing on her words. Was she talking about the same Isaiah? Could Father Yahweh have actually led me right to the person who knew where I could find Sam's brother? Did you say Isaiah? I asked, unable to believe my ears. She looked gun-shy as she stalled, just as she was about to enter the portal. Yeah, he's my best friend. What, do you know him or something? She replied, confused. Her words caused my demeanor to change. Sam was wearing an inquisitive stare, confused by my words. I tried to hide my previous intrigue. Oh, no, I kind of know him too, I replied. Her eyes perked up at the sound of my words. Really? We've been friends for years, she replied. We were both in a military boarding school for the last couple of years. We got split up after all this started. I was looking for him when this attack popped off. Where do you know him from? She looked generally sincere in her questioning. I didn't think there was any motive behind her words, just honest curiosity. But I was on edge because of Sam. I wanted to kill Jade for putting me in such a position. I kind of knew him through his aunt and uncle, I replied. We've never actually met. She cut a pressing look after my statement. Are you sure? Because as long as I've known him, he said he didn't know his family. Wait, if you know his aunt and uncle, then do you know his mother too? Well, no, my dad knew her, but no, I've never personally met her, I replied, being as cryptic as possible. She looked like she was becoming more agitated after every statement. This is confusing, she replied abruptly. Do you know him or not? Sam turned as if he was asking the same question. Honestly, no. Like I said, I kind of know of an Isaiah, but I don't know if it's the same one you're talking about, I responded, leveling with her. Well, my Isaiah is Isaiah Rathman, she answered. It was actually him. It was Sam's brother. What were the chances? I nodded almost inadvertently. Sam turned to me like he wanted to be let in on the secret. Yes, that's him, I replied. She smiled, covering her mouth in an emotional manner. So it's him? She replied. Yeah, I think it is, I replied, giving her a consoling nod. That's great! If you're looking for him, then you can find him? She replied, grabbing me exuberantly. She was a tall girl and had to bend over just to look me in the eye. It was kind of awkward considering, but I understood. I could tell from the pain in her eyes something was wrong. What's going on? Sam asked, stepping in front of me like she was talking to him. She was taken back by his actions for a second, then brushed it off, continuing. About an hour ago, we had a run-in with those aliens or demons. He gave himself up to give me time to get away, she replied. They took him with them. It was recent. Maybe we had an opportunity to apprehend him before he got back to the base, and I would never have to reveal a thing to Sam. It was a relief, because I had no idea how I was going to get it done otherwise. Were they the same aliens we just fought? I asked, moving Sam out of the way. She shook her head immediately in an adamant manner. No, it was back near the strip, she replied, pointing behind her. It was a little under an hour ago. It was like a swarm of them. I trailed them here, but when I got here, there was no one here, and the place was like a war zone. The Battle of New Angeles. The rogues we fought were the ones she was talking about, and if that was the case, then it was likely he was still close. I'm sure they stashed him somewhere during the battle because we prevented their scouts from leaving and destroyed the majority of the unit. We had to act quickly. I almost jumped as an idea came to me. Do you happen to have something of his? You know, like a shirt or some article that he had on him? I asked. She shook her head no before stopping in a euphoric manner. Actually, she replied, reaching in her back pocket. She pulled out a medallion which was identical to my father's. It was definitely the Isaiah I was looking for. He told me to keep this. He was afraid someone would take it, she replied. Wow, it looks like a whatever jumper, Sam replied, leaning in to get a closer look. Well, it makes sense, I replied, trying to cover on the fly. His family is from Angel Haven. Jade said that everyone in Angel Haven was, they helped our parents protect, us. Every time Sam hesitated or showed an awkward look, I thought the jig was up. Oh, Sam replied, putting me at ease. Anyways, Sam, smell this and see if you can get a scent from it, I replied, handing it to him. Come on, seriously, I'm not a dog, he shot. No, you're an idiot with super smell. Stop joking around and just do it, I responded sarcastically. Yeah, let me see it, he replied as I handed it to him. Sam smelled it, then like a bloodhound, he turned around sniffing until he found a faint scent. He walked in a general direction, then stopped and turned to me with a thumbs up. Yeah, he's close, but he's moving away, he replied. We have to follow fast. Moving away? Is he with others or by himself? I replied. Well, he definitely doesn't have any demons around him, but I am catching faint smells of humans, he continued. That idiot, she grunted. What? I replied, confused by her phrasing. He's trying to get those prisoners, she replied. What? I replied, put off by her comments. What prisoners? She hesitated, as if to be contemplating whether or not to disclose anything. We're willing to help you, but you have to be honest with us. We don't pose him any harm, but we need to know what we're walking into, I responded impatiently. She paused, then gave a relenting roll of her eyes. Okay, he said he met his father, she relented. He didn't tell me who he was. He just said he was a bad, powerful man. I didn't believe him, but he said he saw that prison for Christians before they disappeared. He said they were torturing them or something. When we broke out, he started complaining about seeing visions in his dreams and speaking to some guy named Michael who told him he had to free the new Christians. I thought it was just stress, but that was before all this craziness started. Now I don't know. With what you guys just said, maybe he wasn't as crazy as I thought he was. He said he got some vision from God telling him he needed to come here. It took us about 2 days, but we finally arrived around the time all this craziness happened. He said he needed to wait for an angel to come to him. Angel? Sam replied. We're not angels, we're remnants. Angel just means messenger, Uriah chimed in. It just happens to be the name given to God's first creations as well. Oh, Sam replied. Oh, what? The girl replied with a confused tilt of her head. It's a long story, I replied. So, he was expecting us? I don't know. Are you guys angels? She pressed. Considering the fact that the heaven realm angels are prohibited from coming to earth during the tribulation, I would say it's a good bet it's us, I replied. Well, then that's perfect. He was headed for some base when he gave himself up. He said that's where he was told to meet you. I thought he was crazy, but he insisted that he knew he wasn't. She lowered her head, ashamed. I should have believed him. You can't do anything about the past, but you believe him now, Sam added with a smile. And that's good enough. Exactly, I seconded. Thanks. When you see him, tell him Lana said thanks, and I apologize, she added, for not believing him. No problem, I added, extending my hand. By the way, I'm Tim and this is Sam. She smiled and nodded towards me and Sam, receiving my hand. Just go and be safe, Sam replied. We'll be back with him in no time. She gave one last nervous look before stepping through the portal as it dissipated. I stood blown away at how things were being done by Father Yahweh to set this whole thing up, and the whole time I was wondering how I was going to get it done. Maybe Jacob had a point when he said trust and have faith in the plan. "All right, let's go," Sam replied, sniffing. "Lead the way," I replied. Sam shot off as I followed his lead, slicing in and out of buildings, whizzing as fast as we could. It took us a couple of minutes before Sam finally stopped, creeping against a nearby wall. "Did you find him?" I pressed. He nodded, affirming my words, pointing toward an empty street. "They're in there," he responded. "This is where the scent ends." "How many people are in there?" I asked, staring over his shoulder. "I don't know. The smell isn't that exact, but I'm getting at least 4, maybe 5, he responded. "And are you sure there are no rebels in there?" I questioned. He replied with a nod, signaling for me to lower my voice. I was on pins and needles. Thoughts were swimming through my head, envisioning everything that could possibly go wrong. Did Isaiah remember Sam? Did Sam remember Isaiah? Bringing them together could be problematic, and I was taking a gigantic risk. But what other choice did I have? "Where are you taking us?" said a voice as the front door opened. Sam and I quickly hid ourselves, as a teen I presumed to be Isaiah entered the door, leading another group of teens covertly through the empty city streets. I looked at Sam and signaled for him to be quiet. "I told you, I have to meet someone," Isaiah replied. "Oh, yeah, I forgot. God told you, right?" said a kid with a plaid shirt and skinny jeans. "Yes," Isaiah continued. "God told me." "Hey, leave the kid alone," said a blonde girl in a scantily clad spaghetti-straped shirt and a short skirt. "He could have left us for dead in that camp, but he didn't, so as far as I'm concerned, he's earned my trust. As long as he can get us out of here and away from those aliens, I don't care if he's going to meet the Easter Bunny." They all ran across the street, hiding behind cars, making their way down the empty city. "Should we stop them?" Sam asked, as we struggled to keep up with them without alerting them of our presence. "No," I responded quickly. "If Father Yahweh sent him somewhere, then it was probably for a reason. Let's just follow." We stuck to the high ground, going from building to building. We watched them. We struggled to keep up as the cover became scarce the deeper they traveled into the city. The scenery became more and more elegant the farther we got from the battleground. The beginning of New Angeles looked like a post-nuclear dump, but the business and upper-class districts of the city looked flawless. It was peculiar considering the mayhem that had transpired about 30 miles from our current position. They traveled for another 30 minutes or so before one of them collapsed. "Can we rest for a second?" said a kid with a Dodgers hat and huge earphones around his neck. Isaiah looked forward hesitantly, then paused in a relenting fashion. "Okay, sure," he replied, "but only for about 15 minutes. After that, we got to find a safe place to stock up and find shelter." They hid behind cars and made their way to a huge house that looked to be empty. Sam and I followed closely, keeping enough distance to stay hidden as Isaiah pulled a computer from his bag and connected it to the security pad next to the gate. A second passed as the door opened. The group sprinted to the front door and broke out the side window next to the door and let themselves in. Sam and I crept close to an open window and eavesdropped as they rummaged through the house. "This is ridiculous," said a kid in plaid. "I mean, what's going on?" As he spoke, he clicked on a nearby television and sat back listening as the rest of the group pillaged through the house. I couldn't make out anything that was on the television, but the kid grunted and groaned for the next 2 or 3 minutes until the rest of the group convened next to him. "This is disgusting," said the girl. "What is going on out there?" "I told you," Isaiah replied, agitated. "Yeah, God did it," the kid replied. "I just have one question. Why would this great God allow these bad things to happen?" Isaiah's countenance fell. I could tell he was upset that he didn't know the answer to the kid's question. Look, I don't know the answers. I told you it's in the Bible, but I haven't read it since my mom died when I was like 5, Isaiah replied angrily. Well, a lot of good that does us. We're here now, the kid continued. Man, Adrian, will you just stop? The girl cut in. Making fun of the kid doesn't help anything. The kid rose from his seat, tossing the remote on the floor in a heated manner. Oh, forgive me, Karina. I forgot the part where we were supposed to just follow this kid and not ask any questions about his mystical god. Did you miss the part where every expert on Earth is saying this is an alien who may want to enslave us or worse? Adrian shot. We were already enslaved. Why would the kid free us from slavery just to trick us back into it? Karina replied, squinting in an agitated manner. Isaiah looked embarrassed, not really knowing what to say. So, you're saying you believe him? Adrian barked condescendingly. I don't know, but I do know he's the best chance we have of getting out of this hellhole, Karina shot back. Isaiah peeked out the window in a paranoid manner. Well, regardless, I have to go, he replied. You can come if you want to. As he finished his sentence, he peeked out the door before stepping out. Hold on, Karina replied, trailing behind him as he snuck his way down the street. Adrian rolled his eyes before following suit with the rest of the ragtag bunch following him. We waited a second, then followed them. It seemed like we were going forever before they finally stopped. Are we close? Kenny isn't doing too good, Karina added. The kid who was having trouble earlier toppled over, sitting against a wall, breathing heavily, as Isaiah nodded. Yeah, here's the spot, he replied, looking around. They waited a couple of minutes before the rest of the group became restless. Do you think we should go? Sam asked, looking me up and down. I mean, we have to get on with the trials. The longer we wait, the stronger their defense gets. We have to act. I nodded, agreeing with his assessment. Even though I agreed with Sam's opinion, I was skeptical. I felt there was a chance that Isaiah would recognize him, and I didn't want to take that chance. But he was right. It was now or never. If we didn't act quickly, we were making an uphill battle steeper. Okay, I replied, prepping myself to make an entrance. I was tempted to add some smoke and theatrics so that I would be more grandiose in my entrance. I mean, it's not like I could have just walked up and said, "Hi, my name is Tim. You know, that secret messenger guy you were looking for? Well, that's me." It lacked a certain mysticism that I was sure they were prepping themselves for. I figured I could still use my dematerialization trait to come through the wall or something. I took a deep breath and prepared to make an entrance. Before I could, a voice stopped me in my tracks. "Hi," Isaiah replied, as a man arose from around the corner. He was a man of average height, with dark brown hair and a scruffy beard. He had a suit on, but from the looks of it, he wasn't comfortable wearing it. He approached humbly as Isaiah and the rest of the ragtag gang looked at him suspiciously. "Are you the guy I'm supposed to meet?" Isaiah replied conspicuously. The man nodded. Who was he? I couldn't tell if he was friend or foe. I prepared myself, giving Sam an acknowledging nod. He prepared himself as we readied ourselves, just in case things went awry. "Hi, it's nice to finally meet you, Isaiah," he replied with a sincere smile. "My name is John." I was preparing myself for something terrible, but I wasn't getting that vibe at all. I sensed no evil energy around me, and I was sure something would have given him away if he was one of the rebel angels. "Hi, John," Isaiah responded. "Are you an angel?" The man chuckled in a humorous manner before shaking his head no. "No, I am not an angel," he continued. "I'm actually a disciple, one of the 12 disciples, to be exact." His words floored me. I had met angels, prophets, and even demons, but this one really threw me for a loop. "Is he for real?" Sam asked, looking at me. Before I could reply, Uriah broke in via BAU. "Are you too serious? You have no idea what you've stumbled upon," he interrupted. "That's the Apostle John, the last apostle. He's the guy who wrote Revelations."